Hey guys, what's good? Welcome back to the channel. I don't know how to talk about this video. Hi, my name is Sam. Nice to meet you. Hello and welcome back if you've been here before around these parts. Welcome to my little corner. I read too many books in June. And as you can tell by the date, I have been procrastinating this video for so long. I simply just don't know how one talks about 42 books in a singular video. Like, we'd be here forever. But the problem... So here... Oh no. So here's the thing. I had decided, I think in June, if not May, I decided that I was going to be shifting my reading vlogs specifically from reading every single book I ever read in a weekly or 2-weekly vlog so that you'd have all of my thoughts throughout the month, but like live as they were happening. I decided to switch from that format because I'll be honest with you, vlogs don't typically perform that well, especially on smaller channels. And so I have been like jam-packing these vlogs. They were so long, they were like hour plus long sometimes, and when vlogs already don't do well in a 20 to 30 minute format, they're sure as heck not gonna do well in an over hour long format for like a smaller creator where they just don't perform as well, which is fine. To each their own. I love vlogs, I'm not gonna stop doing them, but I decided to shift that content from like every book I ever read to more like thematic, smaller bite-sized vlogs where it's still my life. Might still have some that are longer. I'm working on one really big project at this current moment, which has like 8 books in it. So there is going to be some longer vlogs, but they're going to be more themed, and hopefully that will help cut down the size a little bit, and then that way more people might want to engage and watch them. And that way I don't have to edit so much of my vlogs. So with switching the vlog content around, that means I have not talked about most of the books that I read in the month of June. And I read a lot. So I figured in this video, I would talk about my spreads that I did on Canva for the amazing readathon. I figured I would talk about some of the videos that I did, I'll mention the books that I read. Some I will give more in-depth reviews. I will talk about the ones that like, you know, I want to talk about. And then hope, like, throw some stats in there, and hopefully, like, this is all nice. I don't know. We're gonna see how this format works out for us, because I just feel like if I talk simply straight about 42 books, their plots, and what I thought about them, we might be here for too long. And that completely negates the fact that I'm trying to make my content just a little bit shorter and more bite-sized for it's a little bit more enjoyable for the mass people. Let's chit-chat some of my stats. So I read 42 books in total, which is absolutely wild. I think that is the most books I've ever read in a month. I think a lot of that is to blame for the amazing readathon, because it really pushes you to read a lot. There's 10 legs that are like the official challenges, and then there was a bonus like 50 prompts that you could read for. And at first in the month I was like, I'm gonna strive to read fucking 60 books. And that just... no. No, Sam, don't do that. So once I like cut myself off, 42 still feels so extremely wild, and I hope to never do it again. It was fun. I love reading books, truly, but that month felt like 5 years, because I would look back at the things that I read at the beginning of the month and I'm like, I could have sworn that I read those 2 months ago. Like, it just really messed up my whole timeline of the year, and I definitely maybe burnt myself out a little bit, as you might assume would happen. So in total I read about 4,589 pages, and I listened to 111 hours, 111.5 hours of audiobooks. Wow, that is so so much. That would equate to almost 5 days of audiobooks in a month. I will at some point do a reading vlog, like a weekly vlog, where it's like how much I realistically read in a week, and I'll talk about how I managed to read like 42 books in a month. Because that's wild. That just means that anyone can read a book a month. Don't do what I did, please. For your own mental sanity and health, don't try and read 42 books in a month. It's not recommended. But like I mentioned, the main readathon that I was participating in was the Amazing Readathon, but I was also reading some books for Bookemon, which is a year-long readathon. Romantasy was happening. Lots of things going on. So I was reading a lot. Out of the books that I had read, about half of them were audiobooks, a quarter were mixed media where I was reading along while I listened to the audiobook, and then about a quarter were ebooks, which I've been doing better at. I definitely have slacked this month, but in June, oh, your girl was using her Kindle. The main genres that I was reading were romantasy, horror, and fantasy, which is just almost always a given on this channel at this rate. I was on Team Fantasy for the Amazing Readathon. I don't want to talk about the big L that we took. It really hurts me, but I was trying to prioritize as much fantasy as I could. In June, I primarily focused on reading novels, but because of the Amazing Readathon, I increased my novella readings. I read some graphic novels, which it's been a while since I've touched graphic novels. It felt kind of good. I was like, oh. June, there's something just about, especially June, that I just love eating up graphic novels. The Face Off 48-hour weekend readathon, I was enjoying all of the novellas, all of the short stories. I was enjoying the graphic novels. It was a good time. I highly enjoyed that. My average my average rating for the month came out to a 3.5. I feel like when you're reading 42 books, you're gonna have a lot of hits, a lot of misses, and a whole bunch of just meh right in between. So many books that I just don't really have a lot of thoughts and care about, whereas like I also read my favorite, and I probably gave some 2 stars. And then when it comes down to the queer representation in my book, I was almost at 60% of the books, which is such a good feeling. I try to prioritize queer books and just different diversities in my reading to the best of my abilities. In the month of June, I was able to confirm that I read about 50-50 queer authors, which is great. And then as for the POC authors, I definitely slacked a little bit, and a quarter of the authors that I read were POC. And then, yeah, a lot of women read, as per usual, 60%, and about 20% was non-binary authors, which was pretty cool to see. And then I think that's like the big things. So I just don't want to talk about all the books. There's so many books. So I guess I will now start talking about the books that I read. The first book that I read for the month was Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina. This was the Literally Dead Book Club pick for May, I think. And I listened to the audiobook. I thought it was fine. This is really talking about missing Indigenous girls, following a girl and her sister has gone missing, and she's trying to figure that out. I felt like the timeline was hard for me to follow, and I never really like truly connected to the characters or stories. It is definitely sad. It's not quite as thrilling, but I did appreciate the ending and the overall message that the book was promoting. The next book that I read was the anthology The Skin Was Once Mine by Eric LaRocca. I listened to this on Hoopla, and there's I think 4 stories. I think the first story alone was like 100 pages. I liked them. I didn't love any of them. I didn't really walk away like feeling too much. This was my first Eric LaRocca, but that last story that last story was comically horrific. But that was also just like overall a mid 3-star book for me. I didn't really feel too much. It was my first Eric LaRocca, and so I don't know if that's like maybe the right starting place, but you know, the stories were cohesive enough, and I overall had an okay time. The next book that I read, I've now read this book like 3 or 4 times. I am working on a bigger video. Hopefully that'll come out in August. That's my goal. That's my hopes and dreams. I've been working a lot behind the scenes on it, so I will be very excited when I can actually record it and get it done. But I read The Prisoner of Silk by Leah Foxglove, and this was my first maybe 1 star of the year. And I will again be giving you a full video where you get the full thoughts and feelings. And I'm very excited for that video, so stay tuned. Hope that you're excited for it. I will just leave you with, this is a Marie Antoinette meets Sleeping Beauty little erotica fantasy romance, okay? And then I read the Kingdom of Lies series by Stacia Anastasia Stark. This was a covers with Cassidy favorite of the Amazing Readathon, so I was getting bonus points for reading each of the stories, which was just, you know, really good feeling. Getting all those GRC money, good money. I did not run out by the end of it, so go me. But anywho, I read the whole series. They're kind of like a blur to me at this point. They kind of just like all meshed together. I thought that they were a good time, but none of them really peaked above like 4 stars. It was just like a fun, don't have to think too hard, don't have to like really pay attention to too much type of fantasy romance. It definitely gets bigger. I think the tropes in this were very fun. We're starting the first book. So magic is outlawed, and I love all of the side characters in these books. They were so much fun, and on like your name day, your birthday, you go through like this show, this it's not a trial, but I keep wanting to call it a trial, but you have to perform this act to prove that you don't have magic. Our main character, of course, has had magic all this time, all her life, so she runs away, she escapes, she gets the heck out of Dodge, and she comes across these guys in the woods, and they definitely leave her for dead. They were like, no, actually, sorry, we gotta go. And then they, like, you know, they come back together later in the book, fall in love, the whole shebang. I thought that as a couple they were really cute, but again, the side characters are really what stood out to me in this story. As you continue with the series, more perspectives get added into the story. You're shaping up for like a big ol' political battle fight time. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good series. I definitely enjoyed my time. Excuse me, ma'am. You can't be the face of the channel right now. So yeah, I overall enjoyed the series as a whole, but it wasn't like my favorite fantasy romance series by any means, and it's definitely not like the most memorable, but I did enjoy it whilst in the moment. And then I read 1,000 Mornings by Mary Oliver. She is a poet. I have devotions next to me here because I will be reading this very, very soon, just like, you know, bite size. But the first good poetry that I read all year, thank God. I was definitely getting to a point where I was like, oh, I don't like poetry. But I read Mary Oliver finally. I'm so excited to read devotions because that's like more poems. But I think 1,000 Mornings was like a very good bite-sized start. Definitely a religious woman, which is fine. But also she's lesbian, so like, incredible. I overall, like, I enjoyed the sentiments. It wasn't anything like big standout, but I did like it. So that's how I feel about poetry right now. I'm trying to find good poems. Ooh, okay, the next book that I read was How to Become the Dark Lord or Die Trying by Django Wexler. Ooh, this in Compile came out to be a 3.5. I understand every critique anyone has ever given this book, and they're so valid and so right for them. But at the same time, like, it is a fun and kooky time, and I love Dungeons and Dragons, and it kind of gave me those vibes, which was kind of fun. But I also love video games, and so like that was cool. But oh my god, she was kind of annoying. The sexual side of the book wasn't my personal favorite and would sometimes make me a little uncomfy, but that's very personal preference. I know a lot of people have had issues with this like bisexual main character who's like way over sexualized and really into sex, and like honestly, sex positivity, here for it. I just personally, like, even with fantasy romance, which is like my up and coming favorite genre, I'm having a good time with those. Those are also like hard for me to listen to smut. So I see the complaints, I understand. Personally, I didn't always love it, but I also didn't like completely despise or hate it. Overall, I thought it was like a fun story. I just think if it was shorter, I would probably get more out of it. It was just a little long for me. And then I read a graphic novel series. I think I read the first 2, which means I have 3 more. And these are on Webtoons for free if you are interested in them, but it's Booza. I always want to say Bruza. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm so very sorry. Apparently it's a type of food, I think. But I read the first 2 on Webtoons, and they're cute. I don't really have a clear concept of what's going on, or like what like the main story is going to be. You're following, it's very slice of life. You're following a bunch of different characters. It's got like a hint of magical realism because some people can shift into animals. There is a guy at the apartment that is also a cat, and I love that. I think it's great. But there's like a subplot of one character being the missing brother of like an influential politician that was like super secret and got out into the news, but like the mom is now dead or something, and there's like some budding romance there. One of the characters is an online like a woohoo talker, phone woohooer, and then there was this girl, and I don't really know her. Oh, she's friends with the Oracle. There's like a lot, okay? It's very slice of life. Everyone has their own thing. I love Sam so much, and it's not just because we share the same name, but at the same time, it's like so much, and nothing happens at all. But I think it's sweet and cute. You've got like a very queer cast of characters, quite diverse. Slice of life. I can't think if you're gonna pick it up. Slice of life. That's all you need to know. But yeah, I've enjoyed them so far. I will definitely be continuing, and if not finishing the series, but I think the 5th like season, or however you want to call it, is going to be coming out soon. The next thing that I read was Mask of Shadows by Lindsay Miller, and I don't remember anything except for it's kind of like, I remember that it's a bunch of bad guys, thieves and assassins coming together to compete in these trials, and people are dying, surprise, surprise. But I just wasn't super captivated. This is the first book in a duology, and I really just like was there. Like, I didn't really pay, and I don't want to say like I didn't pay attention, like I just think the story wasn't super engaging or gripping for me personally. I was just like a very mid book. Like I didn't really have thoughts. You know, but I did find it refreshing to read a book with a non-binary gender fluid main character, and like having that discussed in the book, but it not being like a super big part and people like being the worst about it. Like, it was just nice to be like, ah, yes, books like this, because I don't really find or pick up too many that have gender fluid characters. The other one that I would recommend would be The Honeys, which I loved, and that one's a summer camp horror, great for this time of year, but that one's incredible. So more gender fluid characters in books. The next book that I read was Fence by C.S. Picat, and this is a fencing graphic novel series. And the first book really just sets it up. Our main character is trying out to be in a fencing tournament, gets their ass handed to them, and then from there yeah, like goes on scholarship to a potentially all boys school for fencing. Unsure about that, to be honest. Their biggest rival is there fencing against them, and they have to keep their spot in school with their scholarship and like make the team, which is like near impossible because there's only 3 people on the team, and I feel like that's a really bad way to do a scholarship program, but like, okay. And yeah, I thought it was just okay. I will continue with the series. I think they're all on my Hoopla, so I'll probably continue. I don't know when. I didn't find it quite gripping enough. There's a lot of characters, and it talks a lot about fencing, which is not necessarily a topic that I'm super interested in, so it's just kind of like so-so, but I know a lot of people love it, so I'm definitely intrigued to see where. And then there is the star of the show. I read The Throne of Honor and Blood by J. Bree. My maybe most anticipated book of the year. This is the sequel to The Crowns of Oath and Curses. And what a mess. The release was atrocious. It was so sticky, so messy, so bad. The book itself had so many mistakes and errors. Decisions were definitely made that I super don't agree with and am upset about and haven't gotten over. I was looking at my notes though. I just got super angry all over again. I was so blissfully happy when I was reading the book because I was like, tune out any issues that you have with it, tune out all of the drama, tune out other people's opinions, just like be happy with these characters, and I was. But now that I'm not with those characters, I'm just stewing on everything I'm mad about. And I texted Eliza and I was like, I'm still angry. I haven't processed my emotions fully and I'm upset. Yeah. So that was that. I don't want to talk about it anymore because it makes me sad. I read Bonesmith, and this is a book that I will be rereading again, potentially even this year, so that I can read the duology back to back and have them together. I think that this book was maybe good book, wrong time situation, because I was reading so much, and you definitely like start to lose brain cells when you do, and I just don't think I was able to connect with the characters. Anything written in third person, I was having a bit of a struggle bus time in, and this is definitely one of those. The vibes were so good. There's a lot of like info dumpy, like world building information that I just didn't quite catch. I only listened to the audiobook, and I'm going to be reading along with the physical when I do a reread. I think I will appreciate the writing more. I think I will pick up on more that's going on. I think I will enjoy the characters and get to know them better that way. I think I just wasn't in the right headspace when I listened specifically to it at work. So that's my little Bonesmith. Necromancer trials, things go really bad for her. She gets exiled. She has to like reluctant allies her way into a better situation. Ooh, oh, yes. I read another potential favorite book of the year. What a great month. Oh my god. I listened and read The 6 Deaths of the Saint by Alex E. Harrow. I know I'm late to the party. I know people have read this. I know it was other people's like favorite of last year. It's so good. Genuinely, like, I was baffled by the end. I went on such a roller coaster of incredible emotions. I was reading it, starting it, and I was like, I don't get it. I don't know why people like this so much. I didn't know what was happening, what was going on. I was confused, and then as I like just kept reading and kept reading, the more things were clicking, the more things were making me feel. I think that Alex E. Harrow absolutely nailed the fact that it's in second person but also first person, and you're slowly understanding things. It's not just like explained to you at the beginning, like you're slowly getting there, and it's just an absolute masterpiece of short fiction. Like, it's so short, it's so itty bitty, so tiny, so bite-sized. It's not a long read. Wow, I literally ended it and I was so emotional and so impacted by such a short little story. Like, I am still blown away, you know? Easily 5 stars. It was so incredible. I highly recommend it. I know it's on Kindle Unlimited and Audible, like it's like free together through Kindle Unlimited, so I would definitely recommend it if you're interested. It was just so incredible, so good. And I'm not gonna tell you anything about it. You just have to read it and experience that for yourself. But wow. These next couple, I'm kind of just gonna fly through. Elegy for the Undead was a pandemic zombie book, but I painfully related to those characters, and it did not make me feel good. I read this because of Horror-a-thon, hosted by Ashley's Little Library. It hurt. It really hurt. The relationship was just like too relatable, too honest, too real. And I didn't like that, but it was really good. Your Shadow Half Remains is also a pandemic book, kind of like Bird Box, and I didn't personally like it, but I know a lot of people love it for being a pandemic story. The whole like thing is like you can't look in other people's eyes because you may or may not be infected, and if you're infected you might just like kill everybody. You can't even like look at yourself in the mirror, and yeah, I thought it was fine. It just wasn't something for me personally. And then I also listened to The Black Tides of Heaven by Neon Yang, and this is following twins. I really liked the way gender was talked about in this story. I just, there's something fascinating there, and I wish that it honestly was a longer book instead of being a novella, that we could hear more about it, because basically you grow up as a kid kind of genderless. You have like an idea of what you might be feeling, but then once you're like a certain age, that's when you declare what gender you are or like not. And I like that, because we follow twins who go down different paths and deviate from one another. So much happens in such a short period of time. This book really like speed races a fantasy. You've got like all of your classic things in it though. Like it really just checks off a good like mid fantasy. So yeah, I read it though, it was fine. And then I read the Tea Dragon Society, the first book. Oh, it's so precious, so cute. I have nothing else to say though. I definitely enjoyed them. I love the little dragons. I don't drink tea though, so like it doesn't impact my reading, but like at the same time I'm like, yeah, but like how about a hot cocoa dragon? Like something for me. But yeah, I thought it was sweet and cute, and I'm excited to continue in the series. Oh, okay, and next we have Feybound, which I didn't really like it. I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't for me. I was rather bored. I feel like the synopsis and concepts were good and interesting. I think that the actual execution of the story wasn't really for me. It didn't really work out. I like the idea. No. No, I really didn't like much of anything. This is often pitched like more romantic-y, like fantasy romance, and you've got like a sapphic relationship that's like weird enemies to lovers, but it's really not. And then you've got like a friends to love. I don't know. It just didn't work for me. I don't like it. Moving on. Anyways, I've also read Paradise Rot by Jenny Ball, I think, and this was translated from Norwegian, which is great for reading translated books, which I have not done super great at this year. This was weird. And I'm gonna relate it to Come For Me With Apples, because if you know what Come For Me With Apples is about, then like you'll kind of get similar thematics to Paradise Rot. I don't feel like that's really spoiler, but like I will compare them a little bit. I found it very interesting in talking about self-identity, relationships with people, codependency in some ways. I found it interesting. I really liked the imagery, especially of the warehouse, and I think this book had a lot of good going for it, but I also didn't really like it. Like, I don't know. I think maybe it could be like a translation thing. Maybe it could have been, it was just a little too short, and it could have had more to it, and it was expanded. It was also just like weird. Yeah. Anywho. The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich. What a sweet, cute little graphic novel. If you are like me and you loved The Prince and the Dressmaker, I definitely recommend picking up The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich. It's got a lot of similar things going on. It talks about fashion, and it's got hidden or mistaken identities. Just beautifully queer. Beautiful artwork as well. I do think that The Prince and the Dressmaker is my personal favorite of the two. There's always a room for these types of books everywhere, and they have their place, and I appreciate that. It was very good. I do recommend it. Ooh, To Break a Covenant. So, this is a fun one. This is by Alison Amis, and this is a young adult horror, I think, and I read this because of Pokemon. Meredith had like, your zodiac sign picks the book that you read, and this was one of the recommendations for Aquarius, and so I picked it up. Couldn't tell you why. I don't see the correlations, but I also don't know enough about zodiac signs, so don't ask me. But this is basically a story about female friendships, young female friendships, and I really liked the core of that, the core of just exploring female friendships and like their relationship to one another during really not great times. There's like this like mine shaft cave with a little bit of spooky stuff going on, and possession, and you know, not like a light fun topic, but I definitely really enjoyed just seeing the characters together, and like conversations about after high school, what do you do with your friendships, and those kinds of young adult things people go through. That's definitely like what stuck with me from the story, more so than the paranormal ghost hunting crews going to this cave to like see what's down there. That part I was like, nah, whatever. But I was like, oh, friendship. I continued on with Alice in Borderland. I read the second volume. I'm gonna keep going in the series. I was very angry with how it started. I'm gonna be so honest with you. Okay, didn't love it. I think I liked the first one more, and I still didn't really like the first one. I'm wondering if they will keep getting better, or if it's just gonna constantly be something that I'm like, yeah, I like some of it, and some of the concepts are cool, but I really can't stand a lot of the other things. So we will just have to wait and see how that goes for me, but I'm excited to be reading it. I definitely can see a lot of like creative inspiration coming from it, so, you know, it is fun and spooky in a lot of ways. But yeah, Alice in Borderland is following characters who, high school, young adults, that kind of get sucked into a alternative type of world. Think Alice in Wonderland, go through a portal, end up somewhere else, and they have to basically compete in these games to survive. And they have to like tack on days basically that they can exist in this world, so they have to play the games, but the games are also super deadly. It's real messed up. But I am enjoying the world, not so much the characters. And then I don't want to talk about it. So I read Green Fuse Burning by Tiffany Morris, which was, I want to say, it was definitely one of the hosts' favorite for the Amazing Readathon. I really didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. This is following an artist who goes to a remote cabin after having, you know, a little bit of a turmoil with her girlfriend, and I believe her mom died, or her dad died, one of her parents died, and she's like a struggling artist, not doing so great. Her girlfriend signs her up to get like a grant so that she can work on her projects and, you know, strive and do better. And so you're just in a cabin in a remote area by like a swamp. It's not a swamp. It would be a wetlands. I did not like it. I really did not like it. It felt so long, and it's so short. I felt like I was reading for eons. I was so uninterested and didn't like. I liked the horror written. I think that this author writes horror very well, and I'm going to be interested to see where they go next, and I'd be interested in trying them again. But I hated the character. I didn't like it. I didn't have fun. I'm not really the right person to be reading grief horror. I did just experience a grief heavy part of life post reading this, but it was the amount of grief horror that I've read the past like year, I'm almost pretty over it, and I don't want it anymore. Okay, anyways, we're moving on from that. I don't want to talk about it any longer. If you're interested in like more thoughts from my reviews, because I don't think I'm reviewing anything particularly well in this video, I leave like decent reviews on Goodreads for some books, not every book, but I do religiously update my Goodreads. So if you're like ever curious of like what I thought about a specific book, you might want to check there, or you just ask me and I can tell you. But the next book, I reread Fate and Furies by Helen Schur. It's so good. Easy 5 stars. I'm out of my mind. The fact that when I first read it, I gave it 4 stars and was like, about it. No, it's easily maybe one of the best in the series. It's so phenomenally good. It's so good. I love it so much. And so, yeah, I had a good time with it. It's the 3rd book in the Legend of Thasmar series, so I'm not going to give spoilers or anything, but I definitely highly recommend the series. I guess while we're here, we can also talk about Shadow and Storms, which I also read. And although I don't think it was the strongest, best ending for a romantasy series, I love all of these characters. I'm happy with where it ended. I'm okay with what happened, even though I saw a lot of it coming. A lot of it felt a little bit maybe forced to get an emotional reaction out of the reader, but I didn't really have too big of a problem. I did cry like 2 or 3 times. I just love these characters oh so much. Like, they mean everything to me. I am so excited for the spin-off series, The Ashes of Thasmar, I think. It's gonna be great. I'm so excited. I love it. I love it so much. It was a good series. I had a blast with it. It was kind of like hype, the craze going on because the 4th book was coming out around this time. And so, like, I was reading it with Eliza. A bunch of booktubers were also reading it. I know Tori was reading it for Romanticathon, and, like, there was a lot of talk about it there. It was just a good time. A good time to be alive. I love when the community is, like, gets to come together and talk about books that are coming out at the same time. Like, oh, it's just so fun. Another book that I read was What Lies in the Wood by Kate Alice Marshall. This will have a proper review. It'll be in a different video coming out in maybe a couple of weeks. I don't know. My videos are so backlogged. I have so many content ideas that I want to post and, like, I'm excited to do, but there's just not, like, I upload twice a week, so I can only have so many videos go up. So yeah, when you see 3 videos in a week, that's why. I'm so excited about content. Our Hideous Prodigy by C.E. McGill. I want to recommend this book pretty widely. I think a lot of people can enjoy it, especially if you liked Monstrilio. They're not quite the same, but they have something in common. I'm sure you can figure out what. But this one definitely leans a little bit more Frankenstein, historical. The sappicness in it, I loved it. I was super rooting for that relationship, like, the whole time. It was great. I liked it. I don't like historical books most of the time. It's just not really my thing. But I felt like this did a good job at being of its time, but still having, like, conversations with feminism, because she's a woman in the scientific field and her work is just not being credited properly, and there's a lot of, like, oh, she's so emotional about these things, and also, like, maybe she's into her husband's sister. I don't know. I really liked it. I say really liked it. It was a 3.5, which to me is, like, I really liked it. It came from the closet. Oh my god, let's talk about It Came From the Closet. This one I'm really excited about. So this is a nonfiction anthology. So it's a bunch of short essays by, like, 20-something authors, I think, all queer, across a bunch of different diverse queerness and life experiences. Whew. I did, on my Goodreads, rate every single story individually in my updates and, like, talked about the content in it. So I was so captivated by these. I really enjoyed this. This is probably the best anthology and nonfiction that I've read all year. It's just queerness and the author's story and, like, what they want to talk about and relating it to a horror slasher movie or just horror movie in general. And just, like, delving into it and talking about the overall, like, queerness and horror coming together, which is just so beautiful, and I love it so much. And I think that's maybe why I also love reading horror so much, and feel sad when there's just not enough queer horror out there for me personally. But it was so good. It was so freaking good. It rounded out to be 4 stars, but it's more like a 4.5. Like, I just really loved and enjoyed the experience so much. I just loved it so much. It was so good. So good. It was just like the right topic for me, the right bite size, because it was shorter essays on topics. Wonderful. All right, let's talk about The 22 Murders of Madison May by Max Berry. I was so excited for this. I heard about this a while ago from one booktuber. I don't remember who. It was a long time ago at this rate, and I had been excited for it for a while and just kept putting it off, just kept, like, not getting around to it. I love Groundhog's Day, not the movie, but, like, the trope. I love Happy Death Day, the movie, because of the trope. I like that time loop, reliving things, Groundhog Day type of thing. But The 22 Murders of Madison May add a sci-fi element where it's, like, across the multiverses and Madison May just constantly being got. And it's actually following less so Madison May, but our other protagonist, who's, like, a journalist who ends up in the situation and is following along and trying to, like, figure things out for herself. I overall enjoyed the premise, but I didn't necessarily care too much about the story itself. I found myself kind of bored, to be honest, and just not really caring about, like, what was gonna happen next. Yeah, it was a bit of a letdown, which maybe is just because I had been hyping it up for myself in my brain for so long that once I got to it, I was like, oh, this is it? Okay. But I read it. Finally, I can say that it's off my list. Done did. Okay, one is technically SMP title, but also Bloomsbury published it, so I'm not really sure how to like go about these things, because if it's the pink cover it's SMP, but if it's the blue cover it's Bloomsbury. So like, do I talk about it? Do I tell you if you want to review it, you can only review it from that standpoint? I don't know. So I'm gonna skip it, but it was a historical queer romance and I liked it enough. Once characters started smooching, I enjoyed it. There's a fake dating trope to it. It's my type of favorite history timeline, so that got bonus points. So, moving on. Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. I really don't have anything to say about this one. It's angels and demons. It's weird humor that I don't think worked for me. There's footnotes. It's convoluted. There's so much going on. There's so many characters. I think I will enjoy it more after I watch the show, and I will be like, oh yes, the show is good. Therefore, I will now understand the book better. But it's basically like, we lost the Antichrist and now we need to find him or the world will end, but also the angels are like so ready to watch the demise of the world. It was interesting. It had some humor. The Ivory Key. Okay, I was kind of excited about the Ivory Key. Again, I read a lot of mids this month. I don't know what to say. Sometimes it just be like that. I've had the Ivory Key on my shelf for a while. I think I got it from Owl Crate when it came out, and I believe it's just a duology. And I think I will continue, but not anytime soon. It's basically following 4 estranged siblings coming together to find a lost artifact, the Ivory Key, that their father has always told them about and like trained them how to look for things and kind of treasure hunt as kids. But as their parents passed away, one of them went into power, one of them went to prison, one of them left for the rebels, and the other one's just kind of there. God, the fact that my camera just died again. We've been here for too long. They have their own gains and reasons for looking for the Ivory Key, and therefore, like, they come together. And I thought that was fine, but I never really felt like a strong connection to any of the characters. I didn't really care what was going to happen to them. There was definitely, like, the second half was more interesting once they actually went on the quest and, like, action starts happening. But before all of that, it's just a lot of sibling drama buildup, and I was just like, I don't care. So yeah, I'm excited to see if the second book and conclusion is more action-filled and keeps me more engaged, but, like, the sibling drama was just like, yeah, we've been here for too long. Okay, the next 2 books that I read were The Psalm of the Wild Build and A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. This is the monk and robot duology. It's just like a little novella series, bite-sized philosophical conversations about humanity. Basically, the robots are like, yeah, if you're done using us, we're gonna go live in the forest and you'll never see us again. Deuces. But one robot comes out to see how humanity is doing without them and like where they're at now. And you just get this robot walking around with this tea seller, tea therapist. They basically give tea and listen to your problems. They bond and get to know each other and go on a little journey, and it's delightful. It's a cozy sci-fi, not my typical speed. I don't really do cozy too much, but I definitely can see why people like these as much as they do. I wouldn't say they're bad. I just, you know, not necessarily the series for me, but I'm glad that I've read them and like I'm in the know now. The last novella that I read for the month was Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk. I read this author before. I don't think this author is going to be an author for me. Even Though I Knew the End is a historical sapphic romance about bargains with demons and just magical creatures. I think my biggest complaint with this was the main character literally learned nothing. From the beginning of the book to the end, it was like, yeah, I understand why you did what you did, but you learned not a damn thing. And I just was like, why did I read this? What was the point then if like you're not going to learn from your mistakes? But it was short, it was sweet, it was quick. Happy to have read it, but I didn't really gain or get that much out of it. Okay, the next thing I read was The Hobbit. You will get my full thoughts in a Lord of the Rings video at some point, maybe this year, maybe not. I don't know how long it's gonna take me to read the series, but I did vlog my experience with The Hobbit and talked my way through it all. I listened to the edition that is voiced by the, oh god, not my brain lacking all Lord of the Rings thoughts. My boyfriend would be so disappointed in me right now. You know, the little creature goblin, I'm hoping I can talk my way into the name, that says my precious, and it's like has the ring of invisibility in the little cave. Wow, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. I've seen the movie so many times. My boyfriend is a huge fan. I have no reason to not remember what his name is right now, and it's really embarrassing for me. Anyway, I listened to that guy read the audiobook, so when we got to those characters and that part and the scene, it was really great. Anywho, yeah, full thoughts in another video. Oh, and then I read The Wicked King, which is the sequel to The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I've finished the series now, but I made my way through because I read The Cruel Prince a while ago, kind of sat on it, was like, yeah, it was good, but it wasn't like my favorite thing ever, so I didn't like rush into the series. But then I watched this amazing video, and I will leave in the description for you, and that like reignited my love and interest of The Cruel Prince. I was like, yeah, no, that book slaps, actually. So I decided to, after watching that video, being completely refreshed on everything in the best way possible, I read The Wicked King so that I could watch the next video. And perfection. Literally, maybe the perfect book. It was phenomenal. I had such a great time. It was such a beautiful way to continue on with the series, and I just loved everything about it. If you haven't read The Cruel Prince, get on it. Truly, I think The Wicked King is maybe one of my favorite books that I read this year. Okay, A Promise of Fire by Amanda Bouchette. I was recommended to this. This is like a slightly older fantasy romantasy series. I will leave wise words from one of my favorite creators here.
Her brain is just so cooked that she sees all of these men and all she can think is, wow, so sexy, so hot, so captor, but still so sexy. If captor, why so hot? If captor, why so many tattoos? Like, that's her thought process all of the time, genuinely. They didn't even have to Stockholm her. Like, she Stockholmed herself within the first sixth of this book.
That's basically what this entire book was. Like, our main character gets kidnapped and then is so horny for him the whole time. And I love the, like, little found family group of characters. But, like, oh my god, it was so immediate. That's like, ma'am, I'm sorry, you've been kidnapped? And your godfather's Poseidon. It was just, like, a very weird mishmash of a story. She's the kingmaker, which is what the series is called. And she gets kidnapped by these men to fix the kingdom that they've recently had like a coup for, and the whole time she's like, I hate him, he's so bad, but also so hot. Wow. The ending was wild, and I won't spoil it, so I won't talk about it, but like, just know it was wild. And then the final thing to end this video, get us out of here. My goodness, I really said I was gonna try and make this short and then talk about every book. The Sinner and the Scholar, which you can see in, I don't remember what side it's on. This side? Anyway, The Sinner and the Scholar, which you can see my full video where I read it. No shade to anybody who likes it. It's just like a fun, silly, goofy time, in my opinion. She's basically like, nun adjacent, but she's an assassin, seductress. And she has to team up reluctantly with a scholar boy who is like her counterpart, basically. And they have to save their world because demons are real. And it was just a fun, silly time. It made me laugh. It was ridiculous. It was cringy. The dialogue was so bad. Definitely wasn't like my favorite book ever, but it wasn't like so atrocious that like I was angry that I wasted time on it, you know? Very funny, very silly. I had a good time, but it wasn't good. So you can watch the video if you want like full thoughts and quotes read to you about it, but it was fun. Okay, this video was way too long. I don't know if I achieved any of the things that I said at the very beginning that I was going to set out to do besides give you the stats in the books read. So I hope you enjoyed. This was very long. Luckily, I read maybe half the amount of books in July, so the next wrap up won't be so crazy. Thank God. Because here we are. Anyways, I will see you guys in my next video. I think on Tuesday, because your girl has a lot of videos to post. So I will see you Tuesday if you're interested. If not, I'll see you back on Thursday for regular stuff, or just whenever you pop in. No biggie, no rush. You don't have to watch every video of every content creator ever. I get it. It's a lot, but I appreciate it if you do. And I will see you guys soon in my next video.